In this demo, I'm going to show you how you can store large files in your Git repository without having any problems with performance. If you want to store large files like videos or machine images or similar in your Git repository, you quickly run into performance problems. It seems that Git is not really made to handle these kind of large files. So luckily there's now a new solution for this. This is called Git Annex. And what Git Annex does is it puts a symlink in your repository to the large file with a SHA-1 so that it's still version controlled, but you can put the large file anywhere else, for instance somewhere else on your server where GitLab is running. GitLab fully supports Git Annex and it works similar as working with any other file, but with some extra commands to make Git Annex work. I'm now going to show you how to add a big file to your repository and how to retrieve it, and basically how Git Annex works in practice. So I have here a repository and there's a README, and I already put two big files here before. And here I have the same repository locally. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a large file, in this case just a text file for example, but it could be any size file. Call it large file, and let's add some text for illustration. This is a large file. Alright, what you would normally do now is you would stage this file, and we're going to do the same thing, only now we're going to use Git Annex. So before we start working with Git Annex, we have to say that this is a Git Annex repository. To do that, we do again a similar command as with Git Annex init. Alright. Git Annex is initialized. Now what we want to do is we want to add this large file to the staging of Git Annex. For that we can use Git Annex add, just like with Git, and we could use either the file name or just a period when we want to add all the files. In this case we can do that. Alright, Git Annex reports that it added large file, and now we can commit as we would do normally. So we say git commit, and we say add a large file. And if we check git log, we see that we've made a commit saying add a large file, in which we committed this big file. But rather than where we would normally now push to our GitLab server by simply using git push, we want to do that, but we also want to make sure that our new large file that was checked in using Git Annex gets synced to the server. Remember that the large file itself is not stored in a repository. So what we're going to do in this case is we're going to say git annex sync -- content. This will push the commit, but not only that, as you can see, it will also copy the file to the server. So as you see, the file is quite small, so this is almost instantaneous. If we now go to our repository and I refresh it, we see that the large file appears here with my commit message. But if we check it out, rather than the contents that we gave it, we see that the only contents it has is a reference to the Git Annex object, which has the SHA-1 and is a symlink to the actual file. If we check in local repository, large file, we see that the actual contents are there. So this is how you check in a large file with Git Annex, a large file that is currently on our local machine. But what if you start working on a new project that has been using Git Annex and you want to import one or more of the large files that have been checked in? So here in an empty directory, I'm going to clone the repository that we were working on, as if it's a new project we start working on. If we now go into it and we see what is here, we see that the README is there, but we also see that I have three files, big file 1, 2, and the large file that we just created, that rather than files, they're just symlinks. And if we check out what they are, we see that they are not pointing to any existing file on our machine. Because the only thing Git Annex does is it ships this symlink and it gives you the tools to get the large files. But when you are just cloning the repository, this does not happen automatically. And this is one of the ways that Git Annex makes sure that performance stays well, even though you have really big files. So in a case where we would only want to work with one of these files, we only need to retrieve one. And we can easily do that with Git Annex. We can simply say Git Annex get, and then the name of the large file that we want to retrieve. Git Annex will download the file using rsync, which is really fast. And if we now check out the large file, we see that it actually points to an existing file and we can use it as normal. If we check out any of the other files, such as big file, we see that it still points to a non-existing file, so we do not have this file on our local machine. If we want to get all the large files, because maybe you're working in a project with hundreds of assets, you can also do that. And it's actually with the same command that we used before. It's git annex sync -- content. We see that first Git Annex checks the commits, and then it actually gets the big files that we were working with. If we now check out the context of any of the big files, we see that the content is actually there. So rather straightforward, Git Annex adds a way to add large files to your server, not your Git repository, but still keep their version up to date in the Git repository. And this is an ideal way to work with large files in Git repositories.